Elias had always loved exploring new worlds, but nothing had prepared him for the day he met Lyra. He had landed on the desert planet of Virilia with his research team early in the morning. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dunes that stretched endlessly like golden waves frozen in time. While his team collected samples and data, Elias wandered farther than usual, drawn by a faint glow in the distance. As he walked, the wind grew stronger, carrying with it the scent of strange plants and salt from a distant ocean he had never seen. That's when he heard a soft sound, a quiet whimper barely rising above the howl of the wind. Following it, he found her. Lyra was sitting alone, her delicate, translucent skin shimmering faintly under the sunlight. She looked small, fragile, yet there was something about her eyes that held quiet strength. She couldn't move her legs. He had heard of paralyzed aliens before, but he had never met one in person. Her people were advanced in technology, but none had helped her. She was alone, trapped in a small alcove formed by jagged rocks, unable to reach safety on her own. Elias knelt beside her, trying to reassure her with a soft smile. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'll help you." Lyra hesitated. Her glowing fingers trembled as she reached out. Then, as if trusting him instinctively, she leaned against him. Elias carefully lifted her onto his back, feeling her light weight but sensing the fragile strength she carried inside. The journey began slowly. Every step across the rocky terrain was a challenge. Elias had to balance carefully, avoiding sharp stones and sudden drops. The wind whipped around them, pushing against him, and he could feel the fatigue settling into his muscles, but he refused to let it show. Lyra was silent at first, only watching the landscape pass by. The desert stretched endlessly, and distant storms painted the horizon with shadows. After a few hours, Elias found a small cave. He lowered Lyra carefully to the ground, letting her rest. She touched the cave walls, tracing patterns of glowing moss with her fingers, her curiosity slowly overcoming her fear. Elias watched her quietly, noticing the way her eyes followed every flicker of light. For the first time she spoke, though only a whisper. The words were in her language, but the meaning was clear. She had never been outside her village, never seen the ocean, never felt freedom. Elias nodded, understanding. "Then we'll go see it together," he promised. The next day the journey continued. They traveled through dense bioluminescent forests where the trees glowed softly in colors Elias had never imagined. Strange birds with crystal feathers sang in harmonic tunes that made his chest feel light. Lyra laughed softly for the first time, a sound like wind chimes, and it filled him with warmth. But the journey was not without danger. As they approached a cliffside, a low growl echoed through the rocks. Elias froze. A large creature emerged, its eyes glowing in the dim light. He could feel its curiosity more than its threat. Thinking quickly, Elias grabbed a small piece of reflective metal from his pack and angled it so that sunlight danced across the rocks, startling the creature. It hissed but eventually retreated, leaving them in silence once again. Lyra clung to his back, whispering her thanks. Elias smiled. "It's nothing. You're safe." They traveled for days, stopping only to rest and eat. Elias fashioned a small harness from scraps he carried so Lyra could be more comfortable. Slowly, she began to communicate more. She used gestures and symbols projected from a small device she carried, showing Elias images of her village, her friends, and her life before the accident. Elias listened and watched, learning about her world and her people, and a deep bond began to form between them. One evening, as the twin moons rose, they camped near a river of glowing water. The reflection made the forest look like a place of magic. Lyra pointed at the water, then at Elias, and smiled. He nodded, understanding. "We're getting closer." The next morning they faced their greatest challenge yet. A sandstorm swept across the plains, fierce and blinding. Elias wrapped Lyra tightly in a protective cloak, shielding her from the flying debris. He could barely see a few feet in front of him, but he kept moving forward, trusting his instincts and the map etched in his mind. Hours later, exhausted and covered in dust, they emerged on a high cliff. The sight took Elias's breath away. Below stretched the crystal ocean, shimmering with colors he could not name, waves sparkling as if the stars themselves had fallen into the water. Lyra stiffened, her glowing fingers trembling as she reached toward it. For a long moment neither spoke. She had never imagined anything so beautiful. Then something remarkable happened. Elias noticed a small movement at her legs. Her feet shifted, then pressed against his back as if testing something. Her eyes met his, wide and shining, but she said nothing. The secret was hers alone. Elias only smiled, knowing that soon she would find her own strength in her own time. They stayed on the cliff for a long time, watching the ocean glitter under the alien moons. The wind carried the sound of the waves, soft and endless. Elias could feel her heartbeat against his back, steady and strong, filled with hope. That night, as they rested under the stars, Lyra leaned against him and finally spoke in her own language, letting him understand her words through the glowing symbols of her device. She thanked him, not just for carrying her, but for believing in her. Elias whispered back, "We'll see it together. Always." The next day, they would begin the descent toward the ocean, facing new challenges and discovering more about each other and themselves. But for now they remained on the cliff, two friends from different worlds sharing a moment of wonder and quiet triumph. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra knew the ocean held not just beauty, but the promise of freedom she had never dared to imagine. Elias looked at her, and without words, both understood the journey was only beginning. Beyond the cliffs and across the glowing waters lay a world full of possibilities, waiting for them to explore together. And perhaps when the time was right, she would finally walk on her own, free, unafraid, and stronger than ever. The morning sun touched the horizon, spilling soft golden light over the crystal ocean. Elias adjusted the straps of his pack and lifted Lyra carefully onto his back. She clung to him, her glowing fingers brushing against his neck, a quiet sign of trust. For a moment, the wind carried no sound but the soft rush of waves below. The ocean spread before them like a mirror of liquid light, sparkling with colors Elias had never imagined. As they began the careful descent down the cliffside, Elias's eyes remained alert. The rocks were slippery and the path wound sharply, but he moved steadily, each step measured. Lyra's small hands rested on his shoulders, her face bright with anticipation. He could feel her excitement growing, a quiet energy that made the long journey worthwhile. Halfway down, Lyra finally spoke through her device, projecting a small holographic image of the ocean from her imagination. She had pictured it countless times, but never thought she would see it. Elias smiled at her, his heart warmed by her joy. "Soon," he said. "We'll be there soon." The forest ended as they reached the sandy edge of the cliffs. The first grains of the ocean's shore crunched under Elias's boots, sending faint sparks of light from the sand as he stepped carefully. Lyra's fingers twitched at the edge of his cloak, and Elias sensed something different. She had been quiet for much of the descent, absorbed in the view, but now there was a subtle energy around her, almost like anticipation dancing through her. Finally, Elias lowered her to the ground. She looked at him with wide eyes, hesitant but curious. Slowly, ever so slowly, she placed a foot in the sand, then the other. Her legs wobbled like new sprouts, unsure of their strength, yet determined. Elias's heart leapt. He did not speak, for he knew this was her moment. She took a small step forward, then another, and another. The sand crunched softly beneath her feet as she moved toward the glowing waves. Elias stayed close, ready to catch her if needed, but she did not stumble. She walked, really walked, for the first time in years. Her laughter bubbled like sunlight through leaves, a sound so bright it made the ocean itself seem to shimmer more vividly. "Elias," she whispered, almost breathless. "I can." Her voice trailed off, replaced by another laugh that rang clear and free. She twirled, kicking the soft sand, and her joy was contagious. Elias smiled, a warmth filling his chest he had never known. The two of them explored the shoreline together. Lyra's hands skimmed the water, sending gentle ripples across the glowing surface. Small floating plants glimmered where her fingers touched, reacting to her presence as if welcoming her to the world. Elias watched her, marveling at the wonder in her eyes. He realized that no matter how many worlds he had visited, no discovery had felt as meaningful as this moment. The courage, trust, and freedom of a single heart finding its strength. As they walked further, a sudden surge of water reached the shore, gentle but strong enough to make them step back. Elias instinctively moved in front of her, shielding her from the spray. Lyra laughed again, not out of fear, but pure delight. "It tickles," she said, her voice bright. Elias chuckled, relieved that she felt safe and free. They spent the day exploring the alien coastline. Small creatures with transparent shells peeked curiously from the sand, and glowing plants swayed as if dancing to an unheard rhythm. Lyra knelt to touch the flora, her hands moving carefully over their soft surfaces. She taught Elias about the patterns, the energy, the way the plants seemed to react to life itself. Elias listened, fascinated. Her knowledge and connection to her world were extraordinary, and yet she had never doubted herself until now. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long pink and orange streaks across the water, Elias and Lyra climbed a small dune. From the top, the full breadth of the crystal ocean lay stretched before them, glittering under the alien moons rising in the sky. Lyra's eyes shone, reflecting the colors of the water. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined," she said softly. Elias nodded. "And it's all yours now," he said, meaning not just the ocean, but the freedom, the courage, and the choice to be herself. Lyra paused, then turned to him. She hesitated, then smiled widely. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for carrying me, for believing in me." Elias felt a lump in his throat, overwhelmed by the sincerity of her words. For a while they simply watched the waves. They spoke little because words were unnecessary. The ocean had become a shared secret, a testament to trust, courage, and new beginnings. In the soft glow of the moons, Lyra walked along the shore, each step confident and free. Elias followed, keeping pace with her, feeling proud not because he had carried her, but because he had witnessed her courage unfold. Night fell completely, and the air turned cool. They built a small campfire from driftwood, and the flames reflected in the water. Lyra sat close to Elias, her hands occasionally brushing against his as they prepared a simple meal. She pointed at the glowing waves, then at him, projecting a holographic image of herself walking along the ocean for the first time. Elias smiled. "I saw it," he said, "and it was beautiful." Lyra leaned back, gazing up at the moons. She spoke slowly, her voice full of wonder. "I never thought I could. Not really. I always thought I was weak. But now I feel strong. Not just because of my legs, but because of what you taught me. Trust, courage, kindness, things no one can take away." Elias's heart warmed. That was exactly what he had hoped she would find. "Strength isn't only in your body," he said. "It's in your heart, your mind, and in the trust you place in others. You've had it all along." The night deepened, and the stars above mirrored the lights of the ocean below. Lyra lay on the sand, looking up at the sky, her hand occasionally reaching toward the waves. Elias watched her, knowing that this was more than a victory over her physical challenge. It was the beginning of a new life, one where she could explore, learn, and grow without limits. Days passed, and they continued to explore together. They discovered hidden coves with water so clear that the glowing sand beneath seemed like a painting. They saw creatures that moved like ribbons of light beneath the waves. Elias learned from Lyra about her world's hidden magic and culture, and Lyra learned from him about human ingenuity and resilience. Together they formed a friendship that transcended worlds, a bond built on courage, trust, and shared wonder. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise again, Lyra turned to Elias. I think I understand now," she said. "You humans, you have a way of believing in others, even when no one else does. Even when someone doubts themselves. You carry more than just people. You carry hope." Elias smiled, feeling a quiet pride. "We all carry hope," he said. "And sometimes it's just a matter of sharing it with someone who needs it." Lyra nodded, looking out at the glowing ocean. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. She had walked on her own, laughed under alien moons, touched waters she had only dreamed of, and found friendship with someone who believed in her completely. And as the waves sparkled beneath the moons, Elias realized something too. Humans were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most advanced in the universe, but they had something rare and powerful: courage, compassion, and the ability to inspire others. That day, as he watched Lyra move confidently along the shore, he understood why. Together they remained by the crystal ocean, two friends from different worlds, bound not by necessity but by choice, curiosity, and trust. And in that moment, the universe seemed vast yet gentle, filled with infinite possibilities waiting for those brave enough to explore it, and brave enough to believe in themselves. The ocean whispered softly, carrying their laughter, hope, and courage across its glowing waves, promising that no matter what came next, Lyra and Elias would face it together, free, strong, and full of wonder.